Everybody, thanks for checking out the Chris Gethard Show podcast. It's really cool that you're checking this out.
We're about to do, I think, the dumbest show we've done in years.
His life would be trashed! And you better believe I'm trashed.
We are scrappy trash people.
What's the point of this show? I just turned it on.
We've always been with this show.
We've always been trash people. We will always be trash people.
It's true.
This doesn't feel real.
Live from my grandmother's basement, the most random thing about us is our undying devotion to Chris Gethard. I'm Emily Pineapple.
I'm Judge Robin.
And I'm Forrest, the keeper of the canon.
And this is Trash People, the podcast where we watch and review old episodes of the public access Chris Gethard Show episodes and tell you what we think of them. Today we are discussing episode 11, How Random is Random Gene, or the How Random is Random Gene episode, which aired on August 31st, 2011. The musical guest is Phil Jackson and the studio audience, because the guest was supposed to be A.C. Newman of the New Pornographers. I have not heard of this person.
I am vaguely familiar, but I didn't really listen that much to the New Pornographers.
I'm familiar with pornography.
So this person got stuck by Hurricane Irene. And wasn't able to make it. So, yeah. Phil Jackson in the studio audience. The panel included Chris Gethard, the human fish, Bethany Hall, Random Gene, Phil Jackson, and Jake Fogelnest. And the theme for the game is How Random is Random Gene. We had members of the panel had to answer trivia questions about our favorite random, Gene. Gene asks them the questions, and then they answer by writing that on a card, and there's no punishment if they get it wrong. Is that right?
I mean, the audience member gets punished by not winning anything.
Oh, yeah. If the panel member wins, then an audience member that they choose gets, like, a prize out of a bag of trash, essentially. As with many things on this show. And the other theme for the calls, which is only answered by one person, is what is the worst thing you ever got reprimanded for at a job? Or like job stories, like what's the best way you've quit a job? What's the worst your boss ever scolded you? But instead of going into that juicy question, we're going to do a fun get to know you question in the style of the random Gene question. So we're going to each ask a question about ourselves and see if the other members of this podcast knows the answer. Who wants to go first? I do. None of you can see me raising my hand. So my question for you, my friends, is what is my favorite Harry Potter novel?
How do you want us to answer? Just
the
say
one by
it, or
the one by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, no, each of you will just say it. So, Robin, is that the answer you're going to put forward? Or are you going to try and guess?
Forrest, you guess first.
No, I think Robin should guess first, as the Harry Potter expert he is.
The third one.
The third one? The Prisoner of Azkaban?
No, the one with the goblet.
The Goblet of Fire. That is a very common answer. A lot of people really, really like that one. What about you, Forrest? What do you think?
I think it's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
You think it's the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban?
I was actually going to say that before he said it, but I think he was right and then got it wrong with Goblet of Fire.
So I'm like a big Harry Potter person in that they played a very important role in my childhood and adulthood. Did you guys really read the Harry Potter books? Are you Harry Potter people? I don't know this about you. I'm learning. This is strange because I've known you both for so long.
No, I only read the first 6. I never finished. I still don't know how it ends.
Forrest, what about you?
I read them all for the first time in college, like back to back. I got it all very quickly and don't remember much of it because I read it all so close together that it kind of fell out of my brain 2 months after I finished.
Much like the entirety of my college major. Like literally.
So what was the answer?
The answer is 6. The 6th book is my favorite.
Is that Half-Blood Prince?
The Half-Blood Prince What's your question, Judge Robin? Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, all right. So I'm pretty scared of two things. What are they?
Spiders.
That's
and
one.
Death? Being alone?
Whoa. Forrest, you want to guess?
I mean, that's a really tough one. I knew spiders. Is it confined spaces?
Centipedes. Is it centipedes?
I might kind of put spiders and bugs together, but no, it's spiders and heights.
Oh.
Interesting.
Not that I'm like really scared of heights, I just don't deal well with them.
Yeah.
Fair.
I don't love them either.
Forrest, what's your question?
So I'm a big fan of the Star Wars.
No.
I know, it's a real shocker. Who is my favorite Star Wars character? And Robin has to answer first.
Fair.
It's what's his name? Something Katarn. Right? And the guy from oh no. You know what? I changed my answer. I'm going with Dash Rendar.
Dash Rendar.
Dash Rendar. I do love off-brand Han Solo. Which is both of the characters you said. But
Emily, what's the actual
Emily
answer?
has the answer.
Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Because he's a basic boy.
He just wants those power converters, and I hope he gets them someday.
So is this a Star Wars podcast or a Chris Gethard podcast? That's a good question.
Oh, I should have said Lobot.
I
should have said Lobot.
Lobot, for those who don't know, Chris Gethard went around a Star Wars convention, or was it a Comic-Con?
It was Comic-Con.
It was Comic-Con with Bobby Moynihan dressed as Lobot, asking people if they knew who Lobot was.
They didn't.
Google it. Google it.
Google it. Google it. So we'll just get right into the recap of today's episode. They knew beforehand, of course, that there wasn't going to be a musical guest, so the audience brought a bunch of instruments, including an extension cord. Was that the instrument itself, or did that belong to an instrument?
I think it was to plug things into, not someone playing an extension cord.
Okay, but Chris did call it out as if it were just an instrument someone had brought, like Patrick Star bringing mayonnaise. And then Geth invites any musician in New York, if they are in New York and want to come to the show, to show up.
We don't care if you're insane.
True of many things on the show. But yeah, he wanted them down. Jake Fogelnest hopes that Lou Reed is watching to come on. Who the fuck is Lou Reed?
Lou Reed was part of the Velvet Underground.
Oh, they are famous.
Yes, he was the singer and lead guitarist for the Velvet Underground. So very influential musician in the alternative rock and underground of his era.
Bethany wanted Daniel Radcliffe to come. Speaking of Harry Potter again, this is a note that I added to the sheet while watching it on my own because you did not think that it was important enough to talk about Daniel Radcliffe or how he had just starred in Equus.
Yeah, he was just naked with a horse on stage.
Yeah, the naked horse play. I read that play. It's fucking weird.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that something Daniel Radcliffe was in outside of Harry Potter was weird. This is the man who played a farting corpse.
I liked him in Lord of the Rings.
And then we get notice that Jake was apparently the earliest supporter of the human fish. The human fish has a sign that just says ARF, A-R-F.
Because he speaks dog.
He does speak dog. That is a true thing about the human fish. As the human fish whisperer, I know these things. And we get the first human fish question. Harry Nilsson versus Harry Belafonte. And Harry Nilsson wins. I don't know who either of these people are. I know that Gary Belafonte, or is it Delafonte, is on the Howard Stern show.
You're going to be the expert on which of those is correct for the Howard Stern show. But
now I'm questioning myself.
Harry Nilsson Harry Nilsson is a songwriter who's most known for the song "Everybody's Talkin'," which is in the movie Midnight Cowboy, which is a great movie, and really introduced "I'm Walking Here" into the film lexicon. And And then Harry Belafonte is best known for the song Deo and did a lot of civil rights work.
From the Beetlejuice movie.
Yes, the song is from the Beetlejuice movie, not the civil rights work.
Zombies are people too.
I mean, look, yeah. They clearly are also people.
So Geth makes a bold prediction that the panel is not going to get any of the questions that Random Gene has for them, correct? And we'll see if that plays out. And yeah, so each of the people on the panel is playing for an audience member. Shannon is playing for Walter, their only fan. Was he in the audience that day? Okay.
Yeah, he was in studio that day.
Yeah, he didn't pop in front of the camera or anything. Jake is playing for someone in a Santa suit. Bethany is playing for the bunny, who she decapitated last time. His identity was revealed, correct? Yes,
he was the host of Mid-Evenings. I think it was called Mid-Evenings, the show that was on after Gethard on MNN.
Phil Jackson is playing for Headband, a girl with a headband, who's actually Jackie, the caller who offered to let the Chris Gethard Show do a show in their house, and invited everyone over. They mentioned that again. She seems very sweet. And the Human Fish is playing for TCGS fan and enthusiast Julia, I think, is this the first time she's named as like a fan who's always there?
Is she named on this episode?
Well, they call her Pajamas.
Yeah, I think we just know.
Yeah, we just
her.
know that she's Julia. Well, she's in her pajamas and being adorable. And Geth is playing for Mimi, who is not yet on the hoops. Just a fan.
I do think this is Mimi's first appearance. And she's actually specifically called out.
And then there comes Geth saying why he had his other random question that no one answers, which is like, what's the worst you got reprimanded at a job, or the weirdest thing you got reprimanded for? Apparently,
because I said I wanted anybody who was wearing flip-flops should die, and he said I scared him, and I got reprimanded for saying that.
Yeah, he got reprimanded by the UCB because he's frightened someone.
You know, that's not the level of chill I usually associate with people who wear flip-flops all the time.
Right?
Like, come on, man. Just be cool. I shouldn't have to tell you this if you're wearing flip-flops. Just be cool.
So then we start off with Jean's first question, which is name any one of her favorite brunch places in Manhattan, which we have no idea of because we are from San Francisco and have not. Robin, have you visited New York?
No, I've never been to New York.
No, me neither.
Yeah,
I threw up in the New Jersey airport once.
I feel like that's a common occurrence.
Wait, him throwing up in airports or people throwing up in New Jersey?
Both.
Okay.
Chris guesses a place called Nooch, which is actually a place in San Francisco now.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, there's a place called, it's either like Nooch or Noom, and they have a drink that is made from pistachios. It's like pistachio espresso, and it tastes kind of like hot chocolate, and my friend and I went there expecting for it to be like a little coffee bar, and instead it was like a sit-down restaurant with $15 side salads. San Francisco.
Yeah, that sounds very San Francisco.
Shannon said Sarah Jessica Parker's Fire Escape. These were both wrong, by the way. The Human Fish guessed The City, which, you know, a little broad, but not incorrect. Bethany guessed Bagel Maven, which was also wrong, but sounds like the
right.
kind of place.
That was correct.
Bagel Maven?
Bagel Maven sounds amazing.
I know, it does sound amazing.
Okay, but Jean didn't agree that it was correct.
It also sounds like the kind of place where you'd find Bethany.
Obviously not Jewish. I like that, like, both me and Emily both are just like, oh yeah, bagel, like, that's the correct answer.
Yes. Oh, yes. And Phil Jackson guessed Jane. A place named Jane. And he was correct, meaning that Jackie won 3 shower caps. Yay! From the bag of random garbage, and Jake Fogelnest disqualified himself by stating that he doesn't do brunch in a weird flex.
That is a weird flex. I hadn't thought about that.
Yes. The first caller calls in and has problems with their audio, and it's requested that they get off the phones.
All right, let's move on from the calls. We got to figure out the call issue. In the meantime, very special announcement. Get off the phone. You only answer when it's obtrusive to answer. You never answer when I actually say hi to you.
Which, like, happens a fair amount. It happened with Vacation Jason, where Chris, like, definitely thought they had hung up on him, and he was just still there. Love it. And then a historic moment in the Chris Gethard Show. Gethy! Gethy the mascot. You're my favorite mascot. We all know about Gethy, the really popular mascot of the Chris Gethard Show, right?
Oh yeah, everybody loves Gethy. And when Gethy's not around, everyone's asking, where's Gethy? Why isn't Gethy here?
That's exactly what's happening, Forrest. Gethy reached out. He is a purple monster with 4 arms and black and white striped pants for legs. He has 2 eyes that sit on stalks above his head, and the center of his face is an endless maw, according to these notes. He also has eyes on the head part below the stalk.
Yes.
And Gethy doesn't last very long. He's immediately stabbed by a stranger.
A man murdered already? A man instantly stabbed Gethy. That happened so fast. Gethy, what did you do to that man? Why do you owe him money?
Wait, did we already lose the mascot?
I think Gethy's dead.
So yeah, Gethy just kind of chilled on the stage moaning, and the rabbit did CPR on him for a good amount of the show. And then we get into Jean's second question.
Who is Jean's favorite British comedic trio?
Comedic trio?
These are super specific questions. Just like, this was brought up in the show, but I was surprised even at how specific they were.
I was also having a hard time thinking of a British trio.
Right? Like, who would you guess? Do you have any idea, Judge Robin?
Yeah, the Shaun of the Dead guys is what I would have guessed. They're like the only trio.
I'm like,
I know.
3 guys from Monty Python? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. The Shaun of the Dead guys are definitely.
That's like kind of the right answer.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Jake Fogelnest guessed.
Oh wait, no, better answer is Richard Iota, the other guy from the IT crowd, and then Richard Iota's hair.
There is a third lead on that show.
That lady?
Yeah.
That was a good show. The IT crowd. Funny show on Netflix. Jake Fogelnest guessed The Mighty Boosh and also Steve Coogan. I don't know who those people are.
Steve Coogan played Alan Partridge and starred in Hamlet 2.
Who's the Mighty Boosh?
Who's the Mighty Boosh? I'm not stalling while I look up the Mighty Boosh.
Well,
it's a 2-person comedy troupe,
Oh.
including Noel Fielding, who was the goth on the IT crowd.
Oh!
And is now on the Great British Bake Off.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah, I've heard the Mighty Boosh is great, but I haven't seen it yet.
The Human Fish guessed 3 guys from England. Also technically correct.
Though that one could have been wrong.
How?
Because it could have been one of them could have not been a guy.
That's true.
So this was the first time you had one that was actually like falsifiable.
Shannon guessed Abfab and Sarah Jessica Parker. Who's Abfab?
Absolutely Fabulous. It was a British comedy show.
Sure. Chris, like us, guessed the Shaun of the Dead guys, aka Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright. More like Edgar Wrong, am I right?
Boo.
Thanks,
Boo,
Forrest,
Emily.
for writing that
Boo.
joke for me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Bethany guests TCGS in the UK, which unfortunately doesn't exist. UK, get on that. And Phil Jackson guessed T More Yes? Is that a real answer? Is that like a real sketch group?
No.
Okay.
No.
And everyone's wrong. It's actually Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant, and Carl Pinkerton, which worked together on the show An Idiot Abroad, in which Carl has no interest in travel but is sent abroad, while Gervais and Merchant assign him odd tasks such as training a luchador or dancing with a samba school in Carnival. Both of those sound like things that happened in Spain.
I think the luchador is Mexico. But
Oh, luchadors are not the people who...
You're thinking
Like-
Torbiadors or whatever they're called.
yeah,
with the bulls.
luchadors are the masked.
Toriadors.
Toreador.
Luchadors are the masked wrestlers.
I see.
And I haven't seen Pilkington play one, but he would not make a great luchador. So
we get our second caller of the night, Rachel, who calls out Chris's shirt, which says, I should have gone to Pace. Like, fuck Rutgers.
yeah, fuck Rutgers. I should have gone to Pace.
Yeah. And that's because there are tons of Pace students in the audience for the Chris Gethard Show, and she's a Pace student, and, like, way to reach out to your base audience, weird-ass college students, Chris. And she thinks that Gene is still random. We then get our second human fish question, Christopher Reeve versus George Reeves in a wheelchair. And Christopher Reeves wins. Who's George Reeves?
He was the Superman in like the 50s, the, like black and white TV show Superman.
Wait, there was two Reeves Superman?
Yeah, and they're not related at all. George Reeves was the one that Ben Affleck played in that movie where he's a sad alcoholic. And
Oh my
then
God.
yeah, no, it was hard. He had a hard life. George Reeves had a really hard life. And Christopher Reeve is Superman.
Which means logically they need to do Keanu Reeves next.
Whoa.
Ooh, would he make a good Superman?
No.
No.
He'd make an interesting Superman. I mean, I'm down to have like Surfer Bro Superman.
And then we get our third human fish question, Jay-Z or Kanye West. And Jay-Z wins, which is an answer that has only gotten more true over time. And that's my section of today's show.
Yes.
Forest Keeper of the Cannon, do you want to pick up from here?
Sure. And I mean, I'm honored that my section begins with Connor Ratliff, presidential candidate, making his appearance and addressing his first scandal of his campaign, which is that he's no longer 35 years old.
Many of you are disappointed by this, but I ask you, what is the difference between 35 and 36? The difference is 1, as in, hey, who won the presidency?
Connor Ratliff.
In a just world, yes. Well, maybe not, because now that he's 36, I feel betrayed, because being 35 was the whole reason he was running. So he'll have to win me. We'll see if he can win me back before the 2012 election. And then Jake points out the voice at the end of Connor's ad is just really scary.
Paid for by citizens for a president in his mid to late 30s.
Yeah, see that? That's terrifying. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight anymore because
It sounds like one of those like the hostage calling, the hostage taker calling.
Cut open your scrotum.
Oh!
How about that?
What's
Emily,
scarier?
why would you do that?
What's scarier?
Paid for by citizens for a president in his mid to late 30s.
Don't
It all-
play the other one. I don't want to hear
I'm
it
gonna
again.
cut open your scrotum.
Oh!
How about that?
The voice at the end also sounds like when someone's like whistleblowing on the industry they've worked in and is appearing
yeah.
on a news show with their face blacked out and their voice changed.
Yeah.
And then Gene points out that Connor should end the ad by not saying that he's 35 anymore because he's 36, and Shannon makes fun of her because he already has done just that.
Paid for by Citizens for President is mid to late 30s.
Exactly, mid to late 30s, not 35. And then Geth continues to beg for any musicians to come down to the studio, and at this point, they start to specify which bands they don't want to come to the studio, which includes the Eagles, Aerosmith, Bruno Mars, or Three Doors Down.
I like the Eagles.
I mean, Three Doors Down is definitely the worst of the ones that they named.
Did they say Nickelback at any point?
No.
Was it not
I don't think so.
Nickelback hating time in that year, 2011?
I think
I think it was. I think Nickelback hating has sort of been eternal.
Yeah. I think it had already started, but here's a question I have for you. Which band would you most be upset if they came to the studio?
Oh. I mean, aside from people who have been like racist and or like sexual abusers.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean,
like no R. Kelly. Can R. Kelly not go there?
Well,
that's a good answer.
That's a great answer. I think that's the whole. I think that's
I was gonna say Kid Rock.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those great answers. I'm gonna say Creed. I'm just gonna leave it at Creed. We then get Jean's third question about herself.
Do you want me to play it?
Yeah,
Do you want me
sorry.
to play
I thought you were gonna play her asking that.
I have it.
Random Jean.
Okay.
Our next question.
What female British model does Random Jean aspire to be like?
Chris says it's Twiggy.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Twiggy.
No.
That's a British model, though, right?
But it's current, not like from.
Well,
the
you didn't
50s.
fucking say that, Random Jean. You just said British model, Random Jean. I think I just got too angry at you.
Fair enough. I don't know any British. I don't know models. I'm like Tyra Banks had a show and is a model.
Is RuPaul a model?
I think RuPaul has modeled, but I don't know if Ru gets included in that.
Who was a model and who is not a model?
I mean, well, it's funny you say that because that is actually a controversy that comes up at the end of this whole question.
Oh, yes?
Because Jake says Peaches Geldof. I don't know who that is, and it was wrong. Human Fish says English McFemale, which I think is perfect and is kind of not wrong. Bethany says Kate Moss, which is nope, and that's good for Jean. Shannon says Asian Naomi Campbell, and Phil Jackson says regular Naomi Campbell. And everyone's wrong. The correct answer is Alexa Chung, who had a show on MTV called It's On with Alexa Chung, which included content from social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, which is pretty like forward thinking for 2009.
Yeah, I looked her up. Oh no, I didn't look her up. I looked up someone from the next question who's a fashion designer. So you can see how I got those two confused.
But I think also there was question on, is that person a model or not? Because this person also is a fashion designer and a TV presenter. So it's like that who is a model and who does other things is pretty vague. So far the panel has gone 1 for 18. In terms of answers, not, The next caller was Joe, who accidentally calls the human fish the random fish, which Geth says is the child Jean and the human fish will one day have. And as is known, when Lena Dunham appeared on the Chris Gethard Show, she was a mermaid. And that's what Jean predicts their kid would be. So is Lena Dunham Jean and the human fish's kid? Is Lena Dunham the random fish?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's settled.
1.
Settled.
2, I just looked up Alexa Chung, who looks pretty. She just looks like a generic model. There's nothing really more I can say about her. She's pretty. Okay, moving on.
So then we get to the next human fish question.
We know this.
Oh,
sorry.
What did you have to say, Christopher? No. We get to the next human fish question.
Did you just look up when
I'm
you said that?
so sorry. I keep hitting a thing on the soundboard.
Wait, hold on. I want to like do a point. When Forrest said, "What did you just say, Christopher?" He like looked up at like towards the ceiling, like he was talking to God.
No. What really I think happened is I think I looked towards my Chris Gethard album and poster. It's like, no, Chris, what did you say?
So yeah, there is a shrine in our recording room, in case anyone was curious.
We'll have to post a picture of it on the We Are Trash People Twitter account so people can see it.
And admire and be jealous.
Speaking of that's not really a good segue, but the next caller was Stefan, who's one of Gene's good friends. And they went to the Museum of Sex.
So, Stefan, what went down at the Museum of Sex with you and Random Gene?
Lots and lots of laughs, lots and lots of learning, lots and lots of watching embarrassed by watching adult videos.
So you spent the whole day just watching pornography in a museum with Random Gene?
Not the whole day.
I just love that it's like, you know, what happened at the sex museum? Lots of learning, lots of laughs. Just he made it sound as wholesome as possible, and then it's just like, also watching a lot of adult films. But also, the Museum of Sex will reappear later in the Chris Gethard Show when Don Finelli and Murph take Random Andrew, another random, to that very museum. And Shannon asked if Stefan knew any of the answers to the trivia questions, and he didn't. And so Chris has a conspiracy theory that Gene has made these questions hard just to stay on the show. I think that's pretty plausible.
I mean, also, like, so Gene, as will come up later in the show, is really good at finding things out about people. So she might just actually have, like, a warped idea of what is easy knowledge about a person because she's so encyclopedic with her, like, knowledge of other people. I don't know. Is that something that could be plausible?
I think so. I mean, it's also just hard sometimes to like know what other people know about you, or like, you know, because like, you know, it's easier to remember if you've said something than necessarily for them to remember you saying a random opinion you have.
That's true. And we all know each other pretty well. And I was the only one who got something completely right. And that was about you, Forrest, person who has paid for me to go to two upcoming 3 Star Wars celebrations.
Also, who talks about Luke Skywalker a lot. Speaking of travel, though, the next question.
Last year, Random Gene spent the entire summer away from Manhattan. What city and state did she go to?
Chris says Palo Alto, California, and thinks the answer will piss off Gene. It doesn't really piss her off, but he's wrong. He's close, but he's wrong. Shannon says the same thing, but calls it Facebook Town, USA. Or Facebook Town, California.
Wait, that's actually not true. Facebook's in Menlo Park.
Oh. You're
These
right.
New York people, they just don't know our things.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah?
Yeah, I used to like live right near there, so.
Because I drove past it every day when I used to work in East Palo Alto. So in my head, it was just in Palo Alto.
Oh, they got that big thumb, and there's always people taking pictures in front of it. It really bothers me for no reason.
Human Fish said America, which is true, but wrong. Phil Jackson started to write Baltimore and then just drew a cool cube instead. Jake said San Bernardino, and Gene said, no, that's in Southern California. That's not even close. Which I thought was funny. And then Bethany said LA, also wrong. And Gene was actually in Cupertino, home of Apple computers. So Appletown, California, not Facebook Town, California. And
Yep.
Stefan knew it. So good on Stefan. The next caller was Rita, who was very disappointed in Gethard's shirt because she went to Rutgers, but was willing to let bygones be bygones. But the highlight of her call is her exchange with Gene over Gene's British accent.
Oh, I don't think I have a clip of this.
I didn't get the clip of it either, so
Okay, we now know that Random Gene is a pervert.
Okay, I was hoping that was going to be her saying something in the British accent.
No, that was from the Sex Museum, I think. But basically, she's actually British, or at least has an actual British accent. And so Gene goes back and forth, and then she just trashes Gene's accent as not being very good. Which immediately reminded me of Andrew Garfield's early American accents from Doctor Who, which were just like this. Just stressing every syllable he could.
It did sound better than my British accent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it also sounded better than our next caller.
Oof.
Because everything sounds better than our next caller, who at this point we just know is a guy from Queens, but will later become quite the villain of the show. And he immediately calls Jean hot, especially her accent, and then just goes after Shannon and calls her a sourpuss and says she should smile more?
What's wrong with the girl in the middle, though, sourpuss over there with the sweater? I just want to see you smile, you know? What's up with the sourpuss all the time?
Shannon's reaction.
I'm an expert on girls, and I know for a fact they love it when you tell them to smile more.
Yep.
Shannon's reaction is the closest I've ever seen to someone actually hulking out. Just the anger radiating off of her, the justified anger, I want to specify, radiating off, and then the human fish just writing a sign that says "run."
Yeah, she was hulking out. You know why? Because she wanted to smash. Because girls love it when you tell them to smile more. I'm done here.
I'm just gonna no comment.
I liked that Shannon got one last insult off by calling him Edie Falco as he hung up because it sounded like he was doing a Sopranos voice. And that took us to the Lone Cornmeal Machines video, A Very Long Day, which was just like a first-person perspective of going for the world record for sitting in one spot for the longest time.
It was a short film.
Yes, and yeah, it was good.
I'm gonna cut open your scrotum.
Oh, goddamn that.
I was gonna say it's no, I'm gonna cut open your scrotum, but what can be really? And then we get question 5.
Who is Random Gene's favorite fashion designer?
Yeah, this person I actually looked up and have comments about their fashions for people who care. But tell us who was guessed, Forrest.
Chris voted for Diane von Furstenberg, which Gene said was close. Jake Fogelness said for Betsy Johnson, which was very, very close, but no.
My favorite designer, also one of like 3 designers I can name.
Could you name Bethany's guess, Marc Jacobs?
Oh, yeah, because he puts his name on all the things.
Exactly.
Him and Calvin Klein.
Jean loves him, but not her favorite. Human Fish says random fashion designer, which leads to another Human Fish question of random versus specific. Random wins, but Chris says in this case specific should win because we need a real answer. Shannon says Gap Kids, which is wrong. And Phil Jackson says Vera Wang, which is wrong, but is someone I learned about from the Marvel Mangaverse, which is an anime Marvel comic, because there's a Vera Wang reference, and I was like, oh, it's a fashion designer. But the correct answer was Anna Sui.
Jake knows who she is. I didn't.
I didn't either.
Tell us about her.
So she's an influential fashion designer from Detroit, who's one of the few who's won the Jeffrey Bean Lifetime Achievement Award from the Council of Fashion Designers of America, as did every fashion designer mentioned by the panel except for the Human Fish, which I think is why Gene said that they were close, because they all were in that circle that won that award.
Yeah, so I looked it up because I was curious, and she does kind of like it's like very 70s. There's lots of like neon paisley. It's sort of like a 70s mashed up with like corsets and some neon, and yeah, not the kind of thing I would wear, but definitely things that I would enjoy looking at. So wear her shit, I guess, if you care.
If you want to wear her clothes, wear her clothes. That's our advice for you.
Yeah. Fashion advisors, we are trash people.
And then after that, we got a call from one of my favorite callers, Greg Gethard, the Gregulator, who's loving the episode so far. It's 30 minutes in, said it's been some of the best 30 minutes of his life. And he is the only person who actually answers Chris's question about work. Because he was an after-school teacher, was called in by his boss, who fired him, but said it was really hard to fire him and begged Greg not to make it harder for her. So he called her the C word and knocked everything off of what he thought was her desk. But it wasn't her desk. So he just storms out, starts squeezing his testicles as to tell everyone to suck it before awkwardly waiting for the elevator down to the ground floor from like the 23rd floor. And everyone apparently just starts saying things about him because, of course, when you do that, that's what happens. And Chris points out that Greg really proved that they were right to fire him, and Greg totally agrees.
And it's time for your section of the show recap, Judge Robin.
All right, so the next caller we get is Sarah Rose, who wanted to talk last week but couldn't get on the show. Apparently, was last week was MC Chris, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she had gone to see MC Chris at a show. He was signing autographs, and he accidentally stepped on her toe and broke it. And
that's like a
she was
crazy step.
Yeah.
To break someone's toe?
Maybe she's a little person. We don't know. Perhaps she has dainty toes or something. I don't know.
They're also, toes are easier to break than you think. I broke my toe. I jumped and landed on it.
Oof.
And it, like, fractured.
Ooh. Anyway, she was supposed to have a track meet the next day and had to miss that. And so now her track coach hates MC Chris. So Gethard was like, hey, like, give us your name. Like, I know MC Chris. I'm going to shoot him an email. We'll get an apology. I don't know if she ever did. I don't know if there is ever a conclusion to the story, but...
I hope there is, but I don't know. I mean, we may be left in suspense forever.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, we get everyone's favorite caller, Alyssa. Alyssa checks in. Alyssa, the 15-year-old comedy nerd. They're talking about... I guess this is when Watch the Throne had come out.
Yeah.
2011. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Big
around...
album with Jay-Z and Kanye West. Big deal. One song, the Paris song, is pretty good.
I won't say anything inappropriate.
Nothing about masturbation.
Gene! Gene! What? If I was gonna say go ahead and flick your bean,
Shannon.
then let me say that on my own volition.
Shannon,
you don't
stop.
tell me that I can't say flick that bean to Alyssa.
Alyssa.
Don't tell me, Gene, what I can and cannot do.
So, of course, Chris starts the call by telling Shannon that she can't say anything inappropriate to this child, which Shannon does almost right away. Jean tries to get it back on track by asking her about what AP classes she's taking, and Shannon interrupts with
Alyssa, what AP classes do you have this semester?
I have AP Environmental Science, which is stupid.
I took AP Flick That Bean.
Shannon! Shannon!
Advanced Place That Bean.
All right.
APs get a score out of 5, right?
I don't know.
Is this a flicking bean joke?
This is a flicking bean joke. This is.
See, I got that
flicking
because I'm
bean
the
joke.
expert on women here. All right, and then so we got the last Gene question, which was, what was Gene's favorite movie of 2011? Chris guesses X-Men First Class, because Gene gives the hint it involves water. Chris says something about there's a lot of submarines in X-Men First Class, and Gene's like, oh, that's correct. Like, the movie was Submarine, which I don't remember as a movie.
It's Richard
Forrest.
Ayoade's directorial
All right.
movie.
Who's
We talked about that guy earlier. The guy from the IT crowd.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed it.
Huh.
Jake guesses some weird sex video that Gene had filmed with Stefan. Human Fish said specific movie of 2011 with water in parentheses. Shannon just wrote "Flick That Bean." Phil Jackson wrote "Beantown," and Bethany, after Gene had said the answer, wrote "Submarine," and won the rabbit a stuffed bear.
It's a fucking British movie. I just remembered. It's a British movie.
Gene just moved to England.
It is indeed a British movie. And so at this point, Krista says that Gene has in fact proven that she is indeed random.
Which we said back on episode 9, so I'm glad we were proven right.
Okay, good. And then Jean was given a list of tasks, because apparently she's very good at finding information about people. She found out the human fish's email. She got Jake Fogelnest's phone number, which understandably he had put on Twitter, so it wasn't that hard. And so she gets the following random Jean stalking challenge from the people. She has to figure out what instrument Geth played as a child, which, Forrest, I feel like you should know that.
Yeah, Shannon knows the answer, but what was the answer?
I mean, they don't say on this episode.
Wait, they don't answer any of the questions?
Well, no, this is just, they will, but they're giving her the challenge.
That's a good point. I did watch this episode today and forgot that we don't get the answers right away.
Shannon's question was to identify Shannon's dead stepmother's name. Jake wants to know what his 8th grade girlfriend's name. Bethany Hall is the worst injury she's ever had. Phil Jackson said the name of the church he went to growing up. Human Fish's favorite bread, which Gene immediately says Wonder Bread, which is correct. What job Haley had where his coworkers were fish, or her coworkers were fish, which I assume must have been an aquarium. What was Jackie charged with when she was arrested? And Shannon gave the alternative question of how many abortions has she had.
I'll give you a second option.
What?
How many abortions have I had?
Roe versus Wade in 1973 actually protects that, so I can't legally go into your records, unfortunately.
I bet you can find out.
Probably can. That's all confidential thanks to HIPAA.
Thank you, HIPAA and Roe v. Wade. Abortion still legal in every state as of right now. So get your abortions, ladies. Or come to California.
Like
we love doing them here.
Yeah.
It's like Shannon's joke about how disappointed Jean seemed that she couldn't dig up that info.
All right, and that brings us to the end of the episode with what would have been the musical break. No musicians ever showed up. Phil Jackson said he was sure that Mos Def and Talib Kweli would show up. Forrest, you want to interject
Talib Kweli
this?
would later appear on the True TV episode, Oops, We Gambled Away the Budget, when Murph and Gethard gamble away the budget in Atlantic City.
So this is actually when I turned off the TV, so I don't know what happened after this.
The song was pretty good.
Yeah.
I actually have it. They did a pretty good job. That sax is Phil Jackson.
Yeah, it is.
Weren't there 2 saxes?
I think there were. I am going to play us out to this end song. I liked it so much. But yeah, that's the end of the episode, which means that it is time for our special sections. Mine is first, MVNPC.
I love you!
My favorite audience member, and today my favorite audience member has his own introduction.
I can kind of beatbox. Get up there. Matt Mayer can kind of beatbox.
Yeah, Matt Mayer, a guy in the audience, said that he can kind of beatbox, and Chris invited him to go, be that bass line for the band, and he can kind of beatbox. And I really appreciate that he got up on fucking stage to kind of beatbox with a bunch of people. And I think that was really cool.
The beatboxing was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he did pretty good. He did pretty good for like, I mean, I had friends in college who were like in a cappella, and those beatboxers are like fucking insane. Like,
oh yeah, no, I've seen some a cappella and it is incredible.
Yeah, so it's true. This guy can kind of beatbox compared to all of them, and definitely compared to me, who cannot beatbox. And now it is time for Forest Keeper of the Cannons section, that canonical corner over there where Chris's canon happens.
That's all you need to know.
Okay, so I have 3 pieces of canon from this episode. First, while this is his first appearance on camera, Jake Fogelnest previously called in on episode 9, where he raised the question of whether Random Gene is still random. So in a lot of ways, he really helped put this whole episode together. Then also Phil Jackson will of course go on to become the show's resident poet and appear on a bunch of episodes, including the series finale. And then finally, Chris says that the human fish's answers go the Cliff Clavin on Jeopardy route, which refers to an episode of Cheers where Cliff goes on Jeopardy and gets the clue Archibald Leach, Bernard Schwartz, and Lucille Lesueur. Cliff says, "Who are 3 people who have never been in my kitchen?" Which is true. Never been in his kitchen, but it's really the real names of Cary Grant, Tony Curtis, and Joan Crawford. So it's really like it's a pretty great reference, and really like
it's a bit of a deep cut.
It's a deep cut, and it totally nails the human fish's strategy, which is say things that are technically true, but in no way what we're looking for.
And now it is the end of the episode, which means it is time for our penultimate now section, Judge Robin's scorecard. All rise for the Honorable Judge Robin. And Judge Robin, now you have your own gavel that you can bang.
I'm waiting for my sound effect though.
Oh, you want the fancy sound effect one?
Yeah, I like the sound effect.
All right, all rise.
And be seated. That sound you're hearing is the gavel that Forrest and Emily have gotten me. It says Judge Robin on it. We'll put a picture of it on like the website or something. I don't know. Anyway, so it's time for the end of the show where I give out points to all the various panelists. So on this episode, Chris got 1 point for we don't care if you're insane.
We don't care if you're insane.
Thank you. The human fish got 1 point for answering every question correctly. I don't think we talked about this, but Phil Jackson got a point for pointing out that Kesha makes hits.
Oh yeah,
that she does. Someone wanted Kesha on, and everyone's like, "No!" And
no, Gene said Kesha can't come, and Phil's like, "What?"
Yeah,
Kesha, go Kesha.
Kesha's fantastic.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
I fucking love Kesha. I stand.
TikTok
for
was a jam.
Such a jam, and
Chris
she's brilliant.
Got a second point for getting way too mad at Random Gene. Random Gene got a point for having the best date idea, which is the sex museum. Jake Fogelness got a point for telling Joe from Queens, "You got the hots from Jeans. You got the hots for Jeans, but Shannon is in your life now."
Come down here next week, whoever the fuck you are.
Shannon got 2 points. One for "You don't tell me I can't say flick that bean," and saying AP flick that bean. And first place is Haley with 7 points for having the perfectly timed slide whistle.
Yeah,
I think it's Hallie.
Hallie.
Is it Hallie? Do I keep saying Haley?
You keep saying Haley.
I'm bad with names.
It's okay. She's only the mother of Geth's child.
Yeah, weird flex, but okay.
She's also a punk legend in her own right.
Okay, yes, this is true. But yeah, I didn't know who she was before the show. I also didn't know who most of the people named on this episode were.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of deep cuts.
A lot of deep cuts. A lot of like randos that Gene's super into.
Yeah, I had to look up a lot of the people she referenced.
A lot of British stuff.
Yeah.
It's not very American. I don't like it.
Judge Robin, would you recommend that a person who is a new fan of the Chris Gethard Show watch this episode?
I mean, maybe after. I would say don't skip it. It's a good episode, but watch some of the other Random Gene ones first.
Yeah, I think it definitely benefits from like knowing about Random Gene and like who she is as a human and character. But yeah, it's pretty funny. I wouldn't show it to someone if it's their first time watching the Chris Gethard Show. Just because, like, it's really funny, but, like, the jokes are kind of wasted.
Yeah. It won't land as well if you don't know, like you said, if you don't know who Gene is or really get the dynamics of the various people. And like, the Shannon and Alyssa stuff, like, that would land on its own, but it's so much better with all the background of knowing how many weeks in a row this has happened already.
Mm-hmm. It's also a good one because it's the first time Joe from Queens calls.
Yes.
So if you've seen any other Joe from Queens calls, you can be like, that motherfucker.
So what's interesting is Chris said he thought he knew who it was, who was calling, before it was Queens. So now I'm curious if how the connection, that there's a connection there is interesting.
I mean, he knows a lot of the people who call in as characters.
That's true. But it is a little bit of a relief that means Joe from Queens is a character.
I mean, he elicits real hate.
No, the hatred's real, but
from
he may
Shannon.
not be. No.
I'm mad at him.
I'm mad at him, too.
I don't think it's a funny joke.
I don't think it's a funny joke. I don't think it's a funny character, but it, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's not a funny character at all. I would never.
Shannon's reaction is funny.
Yeah, Shannon's reaction is funny, but that's because Shannon is a queen.
It is funny.
Right.
That's because Shannon is funny.
Yeah, Shannon. And then, I think Joe from Queens doesn't get that. He's not the one being funny because he keeps doing the bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, so that is the end of this episode of the Chris Gethard Show, and I am going to play us out to the end song from today's episode, Phil Jackson and the studio audience.
Are we not going to journey into the Chris Gethard expanded universe?
Oh, we are.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just about.
Okay.
Could you calm down? Keeper of the Cannon, could you calm?
I'm sorry. I'll calm down.
Could you
I'll calm down.
Just calm down. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna have you say the expanded universe bits as I play us out to the Phil Jackson and the studio audience band. So we're gonna do our expanded universe places where you can see the Chris Gethard Show cast and friends and family today, interesting things that they've done, and yeah, really just the things that we saw of them that we think are funny or interesting.
So obviously you should watch Chris Gethard Presents, and then also you can check out Connor Ratliff's Donald Duck Mega Thread on Twitter and Instagram, and then Keith Haskell, Keith Haskell, who is Banana Man, and Rob Malone are pitching a TV show called Keith and Rob Shoot Stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just follow around celebrities with a camera and annoy them the entire day. So it's basically the spirit of Gethard, but just with other celebrities.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And they posted a demo reel on YouTube. Or not demo reel, like a pitch reel on YouTube of what they envision the show being like.
That's really fun.
Yeah, I really hope it gets picked up because I love Spirit of Gethard and Spirit of Ratliff and Spirit of Spa.
And, how could a person find it on YouTube? What should they search?
They should search for Keith and Rob Shoot Stuff. And then also we will include it in our show notes for this episode. Oh, sorry, it's Rob and Keith Shoot Stuff. I got it backwards.
Yeah. And Chris Gethard Presents.
Yes.
Just kind of wheeled over that. That premieres next week as of the recording of this episode. God knows when it'll come out.
That premieres June 26th with an episode with Carmen Christopher.
Yeah, and we're going to be preparing a little thing much shorter than this podcast around that. Hopefully something that can give some information and context of the comedian who will be on, so you can look them up and appreciate them even more for their genius.
As well as our baseless guesses for what their episode will be like.
Yeah. So look forward to all of those things. Is that all that you have?
Oh yeah, that's
for
it.
us?
I just have those two.
Thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy Julia singing, someone rapping, I think it's Phil Jackson, and the sounds of the studio audience. There's about 4 more minutes of this, so the next 4 minutes are going to be this if you feel like tuning out. But I would stay tuned because it's getting sexy.
Oh, Careless Whispers coming in.
Welcome to Heaven's Gate Part 2. Put on your purple Nikes. Heaven's Gate Part 2. Everybody get in your bunk beds, get ready to die. Heaven's Gate Part 2. Chris Gethard Show is actually Heaven's Gate Part 2. We're all gonna go to the Tanger outlets, pick up some purple Nikes, get some black robes, go to IKEA and buy a shit ton of bunk beds. Gonna put them all together in the middle of Central Park, and then we're gonna go to the sky. Heaven's Gate Part 2.
How much longer does this go? Why are the endings always so long?
We want to wish Warren Jeffs a speedy recovery. No, we don't.
Live stream viewers, that's it. This one got weird. Thank you for checking it out. Let your friends know that we exist. We'll be back next Wednesday. Have a good night. Beer, 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 beer. Beer, 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 beer. Bra, bra, bra. Bra, 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 bra.